There's a lot of culture behind a name. There is a lot of stories behind a name. If we reflect on that more often, we can also build connections with other people and ourselves.
It's a beautiful insight. It's very easy to get lost in today's world, especially with a lot of noise happening and making its way towards you and taking up your own mental space. And I think your name could be a beautiful start.
When was the first time you listened to someone saying your name correctly?
That's an interesting question. As far as I remember, I don't think anybody get my name right. Some come very close, and even myself, when I'm introducing myself, like just because out of practice, it doesn't, I don't even know if I get my name right. And that it's a good point to reflect on because names are important. And lately, I've been asked by people like, "Oh, how do I say your name right? How do I, pronounce your name?" And as you would have asked in the past, it's definitely important to get it right.
Yeah, for me, I think that names are important because they are basically the first gift that we received from our parents, right? And it's very interesting when we just delve more about what our names mean. And I think it's never-ending journey for us. We're always trying to just look at how our name can reflect who we are in many different ways. And I think that at the same time, it gives us that sense of identity, right? Of who we are in this world. It's the first time we are introduced in the world when we have a name, I think, and that makes us feel present here.
I really like the idea that you mentioned it as a gift, the first gift that we received it as. And I think that's a beautiful way to look at it because this is a gift that keeps on giving. Not too long ago, I had met somebody and then asked their name and I asked them what it means. They didn't know what it was, and then they asked me what my name was also. And then I thought I knew all that there is to know about my name, but because I kind of brought in the curiosity into that moment, I had a friend that was, riding in the shotgun of the car and in the passenger seat, and she looked it up, what my name meant. And I found out that there's more. And let me remind you that this is the 7th time of me looking up what my name means. Every single time I look it up, there is a new revelation. And when I think about it and see how does this name match who I am or what my role it is in the grand scheme of life, it's like it's recalibrating me, to my purpose, to how I want to contribute, and also it's a deep reflection within me, as to different aspects of like, okay, so one of the names that, my name means is brilliance, or say a carrier of brilliance. When I discovered that meaning, it was very profound for me because I never really looked at myself like that, and now I'm bringing a different dimension into my own life.
Also, I think for legal reasons, it's very important to have a name. you know, I mean, if you want a credit card, all that. And yeah, I mean, of course, we need a name, right? I will also add that for some people, it might not be such a big deal, you know? It's just a name. So they don't like reflect too much on it. They just accept their names and that's it. You know, for some people, even they dislike their own names, right? So I even think that people will think about changing their names if they don't like it. And I feel like that also happens.
Yep. I can definitely relate with that. Certain phases in my life when because others were having trouble with my name, I'm like, why does my name have to be so complicated? You know? And then like the syllables, it's hard. It's hard for others to say it, and it doesn't just roll off the tongue or even throat or chest, to get that particular voice that you would want it to sound as, the original intention of it. It's hard. It's effort. And in certain settings, we may feel rushed to say what our name is, and we may not look into the significance of it, right? Especially if we haven't been practicing that as much as, say, in the community of various sorts and various settings. So sometimes we just like go with the flow. Somebody mispronounces it, or sometimes, unfortunately, it's completely butchered. We just let it slide. But it's such a wonderful feeling when somebody takes a moment and asks, hey, how do you pronounce it? Am I getting it right? Mm-hmm. And I really love what you do, where you ask, could you teach me how to say it right? How to spell it right? Am I pronouncing it right? It really, it goes beyond the name itself. It's bringing a different flavor to that interaction. And it makes the person, whose name is being asked, it's like it makes them feel heard, mm-hmm. right? And sometimes it brings them to a deeper exploration of who they are.
That's true.
And it unlocks doors to different aspects in many ways, mm-hmm. right? Whether it be culture, whether it be of who they are themselves, whether it be like, an interesting story, how the name had come about, geography it might be related to, and things of that nature.
Sometimes people may have a hard time finding that identity, right, behind their own names. If they feel like their names were imposed, and then they will decide to just change it then, right? Which they have the right to do so. And I think that's also beautiful. It's a way to also have some ownership of who we are and feel like this is our lives. And we can also just, have the right to just change the name if we want to, right? And I saw one study that was talking about how names are also important for, teachers in the school settings, because kids might not feel like they belong if their names are not pronounced well by the teacher or their peers. That adds another layer on the importance of names.
That cannot be more true, especially for, say, somebody that is going to a certain school. For example, I went to a Catholic school when I was younger. In that setting, like, it's a new country, I'm going to a new school, and I am in, like, I almost like none of my friends that I had known had gone to this new school. So it became such a challenge. Every time, like, the teacher said my name, because there was a funny movie that kind of came out, a satirical movie of a sort, Borat. I don't know if you remember. Yeah. It was like a double-edged sword. People knew how to say that name, and I kind of just accommodated it, and I didn't bother pressing on, like, hey, that's not how you say my name. That's not even my name, but it sounds very close. Yeah. And because, everybody was like, it's nice. And it was funny. So I'm like, you know what? That's okay. Let's just play along with it. But in subtle ways, if I wasn't in the mood, so to speak, and I was feeling a little on edge, then the deeper identity doesn't connect. It doesn't resonate. Mm-hmm. It's your identity, right? invisible ID card of a sort that you carry with you. And now you have something else that you're kind of like faking, so to speak, and you lose who you are. There is this dissociation, and you may not be able to connect. And I'm sure it has different psychological effects. I can definitely understand when you brought that example up of, like, in that university setting or in that school setting where the teacher or the professor doesn't get the name right and the student feels disconnected in many ways. I can definitely vouch for that.
In my case, I think that just recently, like maybe a year ago, I just was Googling what my name was, and apparently it's related to friendship and like a rich friend, whatever that means. And, I think that that's really interesting because sometimes you just try to make the connections, right? With your life right now, with your life that how it used to be, and maybe trying to just figure out how your life could be based on your name, right? If someone has a name that is related to nature, maybe they will be like, oh, maybe I could be into, gardening or this and that. Or, oh, it makes sense that I like this and that. Sometimes having that sense of curiosity will just spark, what might come next for us. Sometimes it's all that we need to just learn more about ourselves.
100%. I have, as you mentioned, that it really is in many ways like a passport, like a key, that grants you access. And, you could go on an adventure, really.
Yeah.
For example, in a setting, right, there's this comedy show or, like a stand-up comic event that was happening, and the comedian kind of, how they do the crowd work and they're asking people their name. And then there was this lady whose name was Sejal. Okay, so Sejal. So in Indian language, Jal means water. And when the comedian asked the lady what her name means, she says, "Oh, it means water." And of course, him trying to make others laugh and use that as a bit to kind of expand and then just, do his humorous work. He was just like, "Oh, why not just name it Jal?" Right? But when it comes to identity, names, and, naming a human, there are a lot of different aspects, especially there's like a lot of cultural nuances.
Yeah.
Because in, say, Indian culture, a name it's not just about, having this identity that, other can refer to you as, but the sound, the vibrations. Because, when you say your name and when you say it with involvement and when you utter those syllables, it has a profound impact on your own system and its vibrations, right? And it affects you in different ways. So there's a lot of different deeper aspects to it. Maybe we could explore it a little later on. And when when the name was asked in this crowd setting, and everybody was just laughing, "Oh, Sejal, why not just call it Jal?" and so on and so forth, right? Or Pani, right?
Yeah.
Everybody was laughing. But when I looked at it, I found it amusing, yes, maybe funny also, but I was just thinking of her in that moment.
Yeah.
Yes, it's funny, but at the same time, it's her identity that's at question.
Yes.
If she had not known what her name means or the significance of her name, then can you imagine the impact it would have on her psychologically? And it's somebody's identity that you're kind of like shaking at their root, right? You go to a place to have fun, let your guard down and whatever, and you're picked on this, and say you're not in the right state of mind, it could really cause havoc, right? So, but on a lighter note, when a name is asked, some certain cultures, they have similar names. Some of my favorite names, like a lady's name, Layla, Leia, things of that nature, and those, they go cross borders, right? Uha, Maya, they have different. Now, if there's, say, two Mayas that meet from different regions, I'd love to hear what that conversation is about the names, And your name, Edwin, it's popular. and say you explored your meaning in your own life, and there's another Edwin,
Yeah.
and now you meet,
Mm-hmm.
and and then if you were to ask, oh, how did your name come about? It's a different connection.
Yeah, it is.
Same name, but passports, and it's a journey, you
Yeah.
know, and it becomes significance. You
Yeah.
know, that's the significance of it.
I have met other Edwins in my life, and yeah, I mean, I think that I've never stopped to ask them, like, hey, what do you think about your name? Or, like, how do you get your name, right? Great interaction, for sure, that I think I missed, but next time, yeah, for sure I will. But yeah, that got me thinking, when I was a kid, my name in Peru, is not that common. So oftentimes that will get mispronounced, right? And even when I was 5 years old, that was the first time I was told that my name was Edwin, because everybody used to call me by my middle name, which is Alonso. And that is because it's easier to pronounce. It's a very more common name in Peru. So for people to pronounce Edwin the right way, it's hard. So I came, with this idea that maybe I should just go for Edwin, which made it easier for them and for myself as well. So now I feel okay with pronouncing my name in those two ways, Edwin or Edwin. I feel that both work for me. And I don't think when I was a kid that I was like, I need to correct people and just tell them how my name is actually pronounced. Nowadays, I see how people would appreciate that. You know, people from all over the world have many different names, and just taking the time to just see how it is pronounced or just asking them, right? I think that is important. But I understand that for some people, they'll let it slide or something like that, right?
100%. Couldn't agree more. Sometimes, I think as we're growing older, if one is fortunate enough to have the time to think about their purpose, their place in life, things of that nature, and using their name as an anchor to then start grounding themselves and then exploring into who they are, and then connecting to their roots, their meaning, things of that nature. And as you said, if the name is connected to the nature, then they could maybe explore that further. Something that they may have only had a little bit of time in the past and they enjoyed it and then maybe forgot. And now when they're reminded, they're like, hey, if I'm moving to a new place, let me see if I'm in that, more greenery, perhaps. And just piggybacking on that, when I discovered about brilliance or carrier of fire in relation to making place brighter or things of that nature, when that meaning had found me, it really kind of mentally stopped me in my tracks, and it was like reevaluating. I was reevaluating like all the instances that I found in I had experiences of so far, and then it changed the perspective, and I'm like, okay, now at this point in my life, I think I want to embody that more. I want to carry myself with that kind of ambiance, and when I'm introducing myself to others, I want to keep that meaning in purview, and bring that angle of me. And I'd like to think that I've been doing that more. And as I am doing that, I'm discovering things about myself. Because in relationships, these are subtle things, right? And the culture that we come from, it's like Atiti Devo Bhava. That means like your guest is your God, so to speak, right? And then you have to treat them with the utmost respect and things of that nature. And subtle nuances we miss with just this oversight and all these things. Keeping that in mind. So should we correct people?
Do you correct people when they mispronounce your name, right? I mean, in the US, my name is very easy to pronounce. I think that there are some people that come from different backgrounds and they try to accommodate. I've seen easy way outs that people, apply to their own lives. For instance, when they go to Starbucks, they will just go for a different name. Or maybe you have done that just to make it easier for them. And I've seen people from other countries, right? For instance, China, where they try to just, pick another name when they come to the US so that it's easier for some other people to pronounce. Not only China, I mean, also in Africa, there are other people from other countries that they will do the same thing, right? That is, an option that for some people it's, great. They feel like it's a good way out. But I think that since we're in 2025, right, maybe we can just think about different solutions. As easy as, us, you know, telling people, hey, you know what? Do you want to know how my name is pronounced? Can I teach you how my name can be pronounced in a different way, like the right way? Or do you want me to help you pronouncing my name? Like trying to just think about casual questions that we can just, introduce in the conversation. So we can also make it a great experience for both parties, like a learning experience actually.
That's a good point, and I think initial conversations are very very important, and taking care in early stages of starting off a relationship of any sort, and taking a moment to ask about, like, hey, what do you think, or could you teach me about your name, and things of that nature. It really shows respect, and it also tells a lot about the other person.
Yeah.
It makes you feel like you're heard, and you're, in one way or another, you belong. Right? And you're taken care of. On a more grander scheme of things, we're about 8 billion people now. How can we put this into, say, action? Or for those interested, what could be a way for us to take this forward? What do you think?
Nowadays, we use social media a lot. We have Instagram, we have WhatsApp, we have X, all of that. I think that a great idea would be if we just add this little feature, right? So when we hover over our names, we can have the option to just play an audio file of ourselves saying our names. So that way people might know how our names can be pronounced in the right way, at least for us, right? So we can in that way customize, when or how we want our names to be pronounced. In that way, we can also just teach people how our names are pronounced. And in that way, we can also use technology for that. If we're just thinking about many other solutions for other big problems that we have nowadays as a society, adding that to the list wouldn't hurt anyone. We can also, make an app, basically, right? To just also practice name pronunciation. We can add our own names there. That could also work, I think. It's just about being creative, I guess.
That's a great idea. Maybe we should build that app.
Yeah.
Make it be like a cultural exploration. Mesa Naranja.
There's a lot of culture behind a name. There is a lot of stories behind a name. If we reflect on that more often, we can also build connections with other people and ourselves.
That's a beautiful insight. It's very easy to get lost in today's world, especially with a lot of noise happening, and making its way towards you and taking up your own mental space. And I think your name could be a beautiful start for self-exploration and that self-connection, or strengthening that connection, so that you can fill and then overflow out, and then maybe fulfill the prophecy that your name was bringing. At least I think it's worth trying to correct people, especially if there is interest, and because that could lead to something beautiful.
Let's don't miss the opportunity to find out what's in a name.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great reminder.
Drive safe.
Thank you. Beautiful conversation, bro. Hey, we have a beautiful piece of work that lives on.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Did you feel it?
Oh yeah. I was,
beautiful.
yeah.
Wow. I'm so proud.